Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Monday. We're back at it again. I see my audio is on, and so that's cool. Hey, Lit, what's going on, man? Anyway, hope all is well with you and everybody out there. So we're going to give it a couple of seconds. Now, everybody's been talking about Stephen A. Smith, so I thought this channel can't be a channel unless we put our 2 cents in. You know what I'm saying? What's going on, Curtis? Uh, we got to put our we got to put our 2 cents in about the Stephen A. Smith saga, and I wanted to say my piece. Hopefully, we'll. I don't know if we're going to come to a resolution, but I could tell you right off the bat that I'm really, really disappointed in my man. But we can get into that a little bit later as people come in. Get the cobwebs out of their head from work, have a little. Libation or some coffee or whatever. And kind of, if you want to join in for the conversation later on, this is not going to really be that long, even though I have some clips that I think are really pertinent to this whole situation about Stephen A. and his transition from being like I thought, golly, when he first came out and said what he said against Jasmine Crockett, not even against her, about her behavior and the fact that she is appealing to the very, very lowest angels of the Black community, as opposed to putting her $800,000, education to elevating the way we speak to each other and the way we address each other and get things done. I thought he was spot on. I just said, it was refreshing to see a Black man knowing that he's standing up to, the feminist boule of just bullshit that, the Democrats and the liberals keep throwing at us, and standing his ground. Because before he made his groveling apology, he came back with a couple of, clips saying, hey, man, I don't see what I said was wrong, blah, blah, blah. So we're going to get into that a little bit. And just on a side note, we all know that we are heading for some serious major repercussions or major perturbations in everything, at least on the human side, on the Main Street side, when November 1st comes and people can't feed their families, regardless of how the generational curse put them into where they are today. The reality of their situation is not going to make it any better. How they got there is not really going to matter. It's that people are going to do a lot of dumb shit to eat. I really think that's going to happen. And one of the things that I want to say, that's kind of a side note to this whole thing, is that our government has failed us in general. Our government has failed us in general. Because the one thing that the government can't do is abdicate its responsibility to stay open. Right? So, and to me, that's just a matter of legislation. I don't give a shit what they're arguing about. The one thing that shouldn't be held hostage is whether they're going to pay their bills and keep the government open. You know what I'm saying? I don't care if you're arguing and you're at a dead still on some kind of one thing or the other. What shouldn't be on the table is effing over the American people by the elected officials. And the fact that they're all getting paid, they all have concierge health care and all of that kind of stuff should piss everybody off. It shouldn't just piss off MAGA. It shouldn't just pick up, the liberals. Everybody who's an American citizen should just be pissed off at the failure of the government. You know what I'm saying? And that's the point. So I don't want to go too much further down that rabbit hole, but I could sit down here being a conservative, and I'm not a Republican, but being on the conservative side, I know who I want to point this close down on, but it's almost irrelevant right now. All right. So here's the other thing. One of the things in any thriving society, this is me talking. I've been this way for a million years, right? As old as I am. We're always going to have to take care of the poor. Whatever society you live in, we're always going to have to take care of the poor in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And with taking care of the poor, you have to realize there's going to be a certain percentage of them who's gaming the system. That's just, I don't give a shit what society that you're in. I believe that that's one truism that we can't get away from. You know what I'm saying? And in a thriving, or what used to be a thriving money making machine like America, it's really crazy that we're the only place where our poor people are fat as hell. Our poor people have an obesity problem. That's the craziest shit in the whole world, but that's true. So getting food ain't the bad problem, but affording some other things are. And so we're in this quandary. And then here's the third thing, and I'm gonna get to the real major point when we talk about Stephen A. Smith and all that shit. We're seeing that and some people already know this, that there's a distinct separation between what's going on in Main Street, where most of us live, and Wall Street. Today, the indices, they all hit another record high. I mean, they're making money hand over fist. They're all at record highs. The S&P, the NASDAQ, the New York Stock Exchange, they're at their 52-week highs. And then you turn on the regular news and you have woman after woman talking about how they're going to bum rush grocery stores. So that's the dichotomy, the distance between Main Street and Wall Street. And once you realize Wall Street doesn't give a shit about a lot of things, full-fledged wars, poverty, whatever, it really doesn't care. As long as some money flows through the people's hands, Main Street somebody else's problem. So these are things that a lot of people are just sleeping over. And one of the reasons why that is that most people don't own a share of stock. Most people just don't. They just don't. And so they're oblivious to what's going on, and that's how the wealthy get wealthy and the poor can't bring themselves out of poverty, So anyway, let's get back to Stephen A. Smith, man, and like I said to you guys before, yeah, I hear you, Lit. Yeah, man, the gripes are just the way it is. Let me just go back. I've been following Stephen A. Smith for, golly, I don't know, 20 years, something like that. When he first came and broke into ESPN, and he had Quite Frankly with Stephen A. Smith, and he was just hitting the scene, rivaling Mike and the Mad Dog that was on Fan, and all of that kind of stuff, because he was hard hitting, and he was just real hard hitting on sports. And then he got fired and went into obscurity. And it's funny how technology is, because I got an app called TuneIn Radio, and I was just TuneIn Radio was my substitute for like Sirius, because you can listen to a radio station anywhere in this country. You still can. TuneIn is still there, and it was free. And then I found Stephen A. in some obscure station in California. And I think that's where I found Max Kellerman too. But, so Stephen A. was out in California just doing like a real local radio station talking sports. And then he got another job at ESPN. He got another bite at the apple with a fresh mindset. And, and all of that kind of stuff. And one of the things that he became, because there was some probably contract issues that got him fired the first time. And so when he came back, I think he became what they call a consummate company man. There's nobody more of a competent, one of those consummate company mans than Stephen A. Smith. He doesn't give a shit what anybody says, because he says, if you have to take a check from a man, you got to realize that you ain't in charge. No matter what, if you have to take a check from another man or woman for that matter, you ain't calling the shots. especially for a job. And you know what? And that's just true. That's really true. Now, do you have to kiss ass in public and all that? You hope that your bosses are some people that are, respectful and have good character and all that kind of stuff. But even if they don't, you still have to weigh what you feel about them and feeding your family. So Stephen A. Smith, you know, that's what he did. He says, I'm gonna be a company man. And today, right, when we look at it, Stephen A. Smith is probably, well, one of the most prominent sports casters in the world. You know what I'm saying? What's going on, Braxton? You know? Yeah, what you got to say there, Liz? Yeah, that's right. That's right. Whether he likes it or not, he represents the company. And he's giving people kind of a way to really look at life. If you're an employee, you have to have a certain amount of humility when you take a check from another man. Just no two ways about it, and you can't put all your stuff on the line. Now, if they're not committing crimes and they're not doing all those kind of things, you weigh those things, so so when Stephen A. Smith came out and said what he said about Jasmine Crockett, I thought he was the perfect man with the bully pulpit, the big mic, and the $25 million a year that he makes to be able to say it and to be able to ward off all the woke mob and the ratchet hyenas and the black boule and all the people who are gatekeeping what it means to be black, as long as you believe in the liberal tenets of the Democratic Party and all that other horse shit. And for a second, I was pretty proud. I was pretty proud of him, because you could go back and forth with Stephen A. And then they came back at him, and he came back out and said, "Hey, you know what? I'm sticking to my guns." And shit, man, I'm like, holy shit, man. You know what? We got a black man sitting down there grabbing his nuts and telling black women, just sit down and shut the fuck up for a minute. This is what's happening. Jasmine Crockett can be a great a congresswoman, but why is she talking like she came right out of the streets with an $800,000 education instead of talking to us like we're people who could conjugate verbs and can talk without, like me, just cursing and all that kind of stuff. Instead, she reached down into the pit of blackhood and just talk down to the black people like we don't know what the hell's going on. Let me just tell you, here's one of the things that just kind of hit my mind when I see how she talks and how she behaves and how she belittles black people with the way she behaves. When my kids were young, were babies, I mean babies, I didn't let anybody speak to my kids with baby talk. I didn't. I said, listen, you want to pick up the kid, you want to, say something. I said, talk to them, use words, use your words. You call them by their names, say whatever you have to say at whatever level, and you can say it nicely for like you're talking to a kid. But I said, use English. Just don't, none of that goo goo gaga bullshit. I don't want them to hear that. I want them to hear, even when they couldn't even keep their eyes straight, I want them to hear real words. And I was really a stickler upon that. They probably called me an asshole, but I was serious. I talked to my mother-in-law, told everybody that. I mean, just like in the house, when they were young, we didn't change the way we lived, me and the wife. We had music on, we had the TV on, we were noisy, we did all kinds of stuff. I said, I'm not quieting down the house for the kid. I want them to be able to go to sleep with this shit being noisy. And lo and behold, it didn't take too long for them to get trained to the ambient noises in the house. And they slept like a baby. So I didn't make concessions because I wanted to, placate down to the lowest piece of it. I wanted to elevate them to where we were at. And when I see Jasmine Crockett doing her shit, I say, come on, sis. So that's why I was proud of Stephen A. Smith. Until he folded like a cheap suit, and of course, I have, clips and all that kind of stuff. And I found a clip that has Stephen A talking about, how he went through this little transition and how he got attacked and where he still stood. And then I'm gonna show a clip on his apology. I'm gonna actually show a clip on Roland Martin, who I don't like, but I thought in interest of trying to be fair, I wanted them to get a little shit off on why they thought Stephen A was wrong. And then I'm gonna get into a sister called April Chapman. And if any of you people haven't heard of April Chapman, she's a conservative black woman, which we have too little of. We need more conservative black women, Christian conservative black women. And April Chapman is a firebrand Christian black woman, and she doesn't hold any punches. And then she talks about the situation from her perspective. And then, of course, me with my AI generator, I made a song and I put that out here that I'm going to play, and you guys can stick around for that, but I'm going to play it anyway, called A Buck Broken Man. Because that's what I think Stephen A was, is a buck broken man. Oh, do have another clip. Because now I think he's going full Trump derangement syndrome. Because, let me just go ahead and take a breath on this. All of you guys out there, if you're a sports fanatic, we just heard about NBA players, a few NFL players, the La Costa Nostra and the Gambino crime family, and everybody just get busted for throwing games and setting up crooked poker games and all that kind of stuff. And all the athletes, some who are still playing, who got involved, and they're dropping more and more names on who may be wrapped up in this whole thing. And then I have a clip of Stephen A. Smith blaming it all on Donald Trump. And I'm saying, wait, and what are you talking about? How is Donald Trump behind the fact that guys is cheating on sports games and they're getting busted? How is he responsible for that? Other than, if he is, that's a good thing, right? We want the integrity of the game to be at the top. But, so the FBI shouldn't go after these guys because Donald Trump is president? And some of these investigations started during the Biden administration. That's how long the FBI, sometimes the FBI plays the long game. They do a lot of shit because when they bring a case, now, Diddy notwithstanding, they blew it there, right? They're usually spot on, right? And so when he started blaming that shit, and I got a clip of that, and I'm saying, what the fuck, Stephen A? How is Donald Trump? I don't give a shit if you like the man or not. How is he responsible for these guys throwing games? It's crazy. Anyway, so I just gave you the outline of what we're going to talk about. I'm going to drop the link for anybody who wants to come up and maybe rant with me, or you might just want to listen to me go through this thing because, some of these people can speak about this thing better than me. But it's really, really disappointing to hear and live through where we are right now. Especially in the Black community where we need to kind of elevate ourselves, and there's just too many people, not like crabs in a barrel, won't let us get out. They just won't let us leave. And so that's where we are. So the first thing I want to show is just Stephen A.'s original statement and some of the shit that went along with that. If I could find it, I'm gonna play it for you. Yeah, where's Stephen A. at? Okay, let me do this. He's the man. Stephen A. is the man, but we're gonna get it right for you in a second. All right, so here's the first clip. All right, first clip. Let me go ahead and then we're gonna share it. We're gonna share it and play it. All right. Here's Stephen A. Smith.
Talking a whole lot of stuff about me because they did not like what I had to say about Representative Jasmine Crockett. She is a Democrat out of Texas, Texas's 30th congressional district. Her work, and her verbiage and all of that stuff speaks for itself. And she has become, a big time public figure in essence, not just as a representative, but speaking out on a plethora of issues involving the current administration and the White House, et cetera, et cetera. And I made some noise last week because I had the temerity, the unmitigated gall to say this about Representative Crockett when talking about the state of our politics in the midst of a government shutdown, by the way, that has unfolded since October 1st. Take a listen to what I had to say last week, please. You Jasmine Crockett or somebody like that. Ladies, I respect intelligent women, no doubt. But how a Jasmine Crockett chooses to express herself, I'm like, is that going to help your district in Texas? Aren't you there to find a way to get stuff done as opposed to just being an impediment to what Trump wants? How much work goes into that? I'm just going to go off about Trump, cuss him out every chance I get, say the most derogatory, incendiary things imaginable, and that's my day's work. That ain't work. Work is saying that's the man in power. I know what his agenda is. I'm not exactly in a position to stop him since the Republicans have the Senate and the House. But maybe if I'm willing to work with this man, I might get something out of it for my constituency. Because like Joe Manchin said, he's there to represent, or was there for 15 years to represent, the people of West Virginia. She's supposed to be there to represent the people of Texas. I don't know. Maybe that just sounds ignorant because it's so simple. But it ain't that damn complicated. We make it complicated. Damn, it's frustrating. It really can be. And all the verbiage and all the nonsense that I've heard over the last few days.
Okay, so we're going to continue for a second. I want to just take a break here. Now, I want everybody who's in the audience, whether you want to put something in the chat or not, what did he say that is wrong or lie or maybe some of the details, like she's not going to walk into the president's office, but if she wasn't like she was, maybe they would have some dialogue, but that's not how it goes, okay? But from what I recall, from day one, even before he got elected, she turned into this ghetto girl when she addresses this man. And if the president knows that there's a whole bunch of Congress people who call him Hitler and, some threat against democracy, and he's this kind of guy, he's a piece of this and he's a piece of that, how's he going to treat you? How's he going to look at you? And how is he going to refer to you when somebody asks him about what you say? Right. So, and this is the quandary that we're in. Right. And I'm just thinking that all of the polish that she should have had, she's just wasting it, because now that's what people think. And a lot of people forgot that Jasmine Crockett was putting her name in the hat for a major committee on the Democratic side. And they pretty much all but ignored her, right? I mean, I think they voted on it and she was somewhere last on the list, or she didn't, she was thoroughly disappointed and rejected and rebuked. And I can't help to think that the way she behaves was a part of that.
It's why it can get exhausting. Because nothing frustrates me more than when people have the truth at their disposal and they choose, maybe not lie, maybe not even embellish, but allow their emotions to usurp facts, and all of a sudden want to use that as an excuse to label me as being something and doing something I'm neither not nor have I done, which in this case is disrespecting Representative Crockett out of Texas, who, by the way, has had an invite to this show for weeks, by the way. Governors Josh Shapiro and Spencer Cox came on this show. Senator Lindsey Graham came on this show. Joe Manchin, now retired, came on this show. Bill O'Reilly, Bill Maher came on this show. Okay? And more are coming. And she has an invite. And AOC has an invite. Hakeem Jeffries, Democratic House Leader, he just was on this show.
KP, I just want to let you know that it would be easier to count the number of congressmen and senators who are not being paid by the small hats through AIPAC. That includes the Congressional Black Caucus and everybody else. Our Congress and everybody's been bought and paid for. That includes the NAACP, Urban League, all of them. You know, the only freedom that we have is independent thought, because everybody has their pocket somewhere. And how does a congressman like Nancy Pelosi be worth $600 million when she's been a public servant for her whole life? That kind of shit. You know what I'm saying?
I've invited Jasmine Crockett. I have nothing but respect for her. I just disagree on what she's making headlines for, because I think it's counterproductive to the ultimate goal. But yet, here we are, and the word disrespect comes in, and people try to engage with words, you know, like disrespect and implying misogyny and all of this other nonsense. Stop it. Stop it. Can we be grown-ups and deal with what the real issue is involving what I said? Willie D, Roland Martin, Bakari Sellers, and Angela Rye, who I have profound respect for. I mean, the list goes on and on with all of these people. I don't have their names in front of me. To my producer that texted to me, I don't have my phone on me right now, so I apologize for not having those names in front of me. But I'm what are we talking about? How's it disrespectful to say what I said? Could you just disagree? Could we just say, yo, Stephen A., I disagree with you. Here's why. We got Willie D. Put up that quote, please. He's putting out quotes or text or tweets about me. Let's see that again. Stephen A. Smith taking shots at Jasmine Crockett ain't just messy, it's weak. Dude is sitting on one of the biggest mics in America, and instead of using it to uplift, he's tearing down a black woman who's out here putting in real work. That ain't critique, that's betrayal. Jasmine Crockett ain't the problem. She's the kind of woman who walks into rooms full of snakes and makes the snakes flinch. Meanwhile, Stephen's showing what happens when a paycheck gets louder than the principal. That sucker shit, straight up, end quote. Wow, Willie D. You sure are uplifting. I mean, I got to be touched. That was inspirational. Really, that really, really was. That was inspirational. I'm doing sucker shit. That's what you call inspirational? That's what you call uplifting? Really? Now, I haven't heard everything that Roland Martin said, D.L. Hughley had to say, and all the other names that I'm...
All right, so listen, we know where this is going, right? So I just wanted to give you guys a taste of his blowback. But here, even still, he's defiant. He has some defiance left. You know what I'm saying? There's something still there. You know, the man, Stephen A., is still there. You know, he said, okay, you're throwing some shots at me. You know what? My mic and my self-respect and all that, I'm throwing that shit back at you. No apology, no nothing. And it was a point where, you know, I was happy for this guy, you know? So, okay, so we're going to keep going. So we're going to just take that off for a second and just, you know, just keep it going. Because I do want to share a little bit of what Roland Martin had to say, because Roland Martin had the blowback, and I just thought it would be only fair to hear some criticisms of Stephen A. And then I'll tell you that I think that this criticism, whatever you think about it, shouldn't make a guy like Stephen A. buckle whatsoever, but and then we can get into the conversation of why do we think he really buckled? You know, it certainly wasn't. It certainly couldn't have been because of the chicks, right? Who didn't like him. So, because they're a dime a dozen. The Tiffany Crosses, the Angela Rise. That I wouldn't buckle to them. I don't see why he would. So I'm sitting down here saying, well, what's he buckling to these people for? But let's go ahead and see a little bit about Roland Martin and what he had to say about Stephen A. And maybe he had a few points. I don't know, but let's listen to it. Let's listen to it. I'm just trying to be fair, a fair and balanced, like like Fox News. Let's go.
How she's wrong, and she's wrong, and she's wrong about this, and she's just popping off, and that's not what he sent her for. Let me ask you a question, Stephen A. Are you?
You know what? I don't know why I don't like Roland Martin so much, but I never have. He seems phony to me off the rip. I don't want to say it's because he's a noob, because I like some noobs. You know what I'm saying? But he just, the race baiting and all of that kind of gatekeeping, and half the shit he says, I gotta believe he doesn't believe himself. But that's real.
A voter in the 30th Congressional District of Texas. I know who he is, Stephen A. Yep. My homestead in Texas resides in the 30th Congressional District. I am a voter. So when you go on Pivot, and your Sirius XM radio show, and CNN, and News Nation, and here's the deal. I don't care. Go on all those shows. When you go on all those shows, and you say what the voters of the 30th Congressional District did not send Jasmine Crockett to do, how do you know that when you aren't one of them? I am. And the fact of the matter is, Stephen A., the voters of the 30th Congressional District did send Jasmine Crockett to fight MAGA.
All right, okay. So they sent her to fight MAGA to sound like a ghetto snipe, a ghetto snipe, a gutter snipe, a hood booger. That's what they really sent her there. Is that elevation? Now they might have sent her there to fight MAGA. I mean, that's okay. She's a Democrat, so by definition, a liberal Democrat at that. You're not only fighting MAGA as another term. You would send her there to be the opponent to any Republican strategy. But they certainly didn't tell her to get your $800,000 education and go there to sound like a third grader on a temper tantrum. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. They did an expose about the district that she runs, with all the closed housing and all the closed buildings and the dirty streets and all that shit. Now, I don't want to blame that on her. That kind of poverty and stuff is creeping over a lot of places. So that's not her fault. But I don't know whether a little bit of honey and a little bit of sugar and a little bit more, stealth and, I guess, strategy can do better for a community than dropping the F-bomb every other day.
They did. We did send Jasmine Crockett to fight for the voters. We did send Jasmine Crockett to fight the agenda. Now it's very interesting when you go on television and you sit here and proclaim what the voters of District 30. Okay, Stephen A. This is a fact. This is the results from the November 2024 election. Jasmine Crockett received 84.9% of the votes cast, Stephen A. Where I come from, Stephen A., that's called a resounding victory. When more than 200,000 votes are cast, I'm sorry, more than 239,000 votes are cast, and Crockett got 197,650 of them. So it's pretty arrogant of you to say what the voters of the 30th Congressional District did not send her to do when she's doing exactly what the voters sent her to do.
Let me stop it there because I'm going to move it from that. Again, so this is a spurious point that he's trying to make. The voters didn't go and they voted for her in good numbers because they were on her campaign trail. She was the $800,000 woman. When she was campaigning for them, she was the $800,000 woman. Her early days in Congress, she was dressed like a woman who was on the up and coming. She had, different kind of hairstyle, different kind of this, different kind of vernacular and everything. So they voted for her because there's a plethora of black women, liberal women being voted almost everywhere. And don't let me pull out my list of how many of them have goddamn fumbled the bag. But here's again, so Stephen A. didn't say anything about her qualifications of being elected. He did. He says, now that you're there, why are you acting like a ghetto snipe? That's what he said. So it has nothing to do with her numbers. Congratulations, she won. But I don't think the person in that voting guy thought she would go there and start cursing and doing all that other kind of shit. Okay, so we're going to move this up a little bit because he has some data that I think is worth people seeing. I do think it's worth seeing. Let me get to the right spot so we don't have to meander. All right, so he has some data. All right, so here's some data.
May 11th, 2023. This was under Biden. And this is a bipartisan effort from between Republicans and Democrats to deal with a particular project in Texas. It's dealing with ARPA-H. Look at this. We write to express our strong support in the selection of Texas as ARPA-H's customer experience hub, with Pegasus Park in Dallas serving as the site for physical office space. This right here, Stephen A., is a bipartisan effort. Oh, Stephen, do you see that? That's the signature of Jasmine Crockett. On the right side is the signature of Kay Granger, unfortunately, who has dementia now, no longer a member of Congress. See, Steve A., the reason I'm quite familiar with Kay Granger, because I covered City Hall in Fort Worth when she was the mayor. And so here's an effort where Jasmine Crockett worked with a Republican from Tarrant County, Texas, to secure this project. That's called working across the aisle. Operative word there, Stephen A., is working. You question, she's just there running her mouth. March 6, 2024 press release. Crockett secures $10.4 million for local projects in first package of government funding for fiscal year 2024. Representative Crockett championed funding for 11 projects that would directly benefit Texas's 30th Congressional District under this bill. They include $600,000 for the Bonton Farms Bayer Resource Center, $959,000 for the city of Lancaster for wastewater improvement projects, $500,000 for the University of North Texas at Dallas College of Law, $850,000 for Fair Park First Development for the community park at Fair Park, $850,000 for the city of Grand Prairie for expansion of Lake Ridge Bridge, $1.6 million to the city of DeSoto for Hampton Road redevelopment, $500,000 to Texas Trust for public land for Judge Charles R. Rose Community Park, $2.5 million to the city of Dallas for enhancements to the Martin Luther King Jr. Community Center, $850,000 for renovation of Park South Family YMCA, $200,000 for technical improvements at DeSoto Regional Jail, $1 million to the city of Cedar Hill for U.S. Highway 67, Tidwell Bridge and intersection improvements. That, Stephen A., was for fiscal year 2024. Now, I'm sure
All right, so we're going to end it there, okay, because we could talk about that a little bit, but you notice that those bills and whatever those proposals were from under the Biden administration. And if you go down that list, you know, there was mostly social programs that she was looking at, which might not be that bad. You know, improving the jails is cool, but how does that jive with cashless bail system when nobody's spending any time in the goddamn place? And then, of course, but the point really is that she did some work, and I'm sure that when she sat down and did some of that work, she acted like a human being. Now, I don't know how many of those things got funded when Trump came into office. Some of those things probably, if they weren't appropriated, and they probably were, whatever new stuff that she had planned for after the election probably got ixnayed. And that's the way government works. You know, so none of this stuff, I don't hear anything that she's trying to do in 2025 or pass up through Hakeem Timu Obama to try to get on the table other than trying to fund illegal aliens with taxpayer money. And so, you know, so yeah, all the stuff that she did under Biden is under Biden, right? So we always tell people, let's move forward. What is she trying to do now, right? The only thing she's trying to do now is just clickbait, you know, and maybe add followers to her Instagram or whatever the hell she's doing. And like I said, I think she's has some intelligence somewhere in there, but she's not utilizing it because she's trying to appeal to Black people's lesser demons, just like so many other race baiting bastards that are gatekeeping what it is for us to get ahead. You know, so anyway, so I just wanted to put Roland Martin up there so I could say I was fair and you guys could take it any way you want. All right, so because I wanted to put that up there before I go into Stephen A.'s butt-breaking, you know, butt-breaking, you know, sad-ass apology. But let me ask a question, and let me just, did I drop the link? Let me just ask a question a couple of times. No, the other question, I think, what did I have some questions? Oh, yeah. I have a couple of questions after the apology that I would like to hear some people tell me about, because we're going to play the apology next. I'm going to drop the link, and anybody who wants to come up after the apology and talk about it and all that kind of good stuff, you know, we could do that. All right, so here we go. Let me do this. Get out of this. Let me get to the apology link. So I wanted to be fair. I think I was fair. So let's go to Stephen A. Brokeback Mountain apology tour link and see how his mea culpa to the woke mob. Okay, there was something. All right. Something was wrong. All right.
Straight Shooter with Stephen A.
To this special edition of Straight Shooter with Stephen A. That's what I'm going to call this, Straight Shooter with Stephen A., because obviously this doesn't have anything to do with sports. This has a lot to do with a whole brouhaha that's been going on with me over the last few weeks. Now, I will tell you, I apologize for not speaking about this earlier. If you took a close-up of my face right now, you'll see the right side of my face swollen. I had emergency double root canal surgery. And so I've been down and out and drugged up and stuff like that over the last few days, trying to overcome this stuff. But nevertheless, it is what it is. I'm here right now. I wanted to take a moment because I saw something disturbing in regards to President Donald Trump and how he came at Representative Jasmine Crockett. And I wanted to take this opportunity to attack this issue as it pertained to me and Jasmine Crockett, because I personally have had an issue with how things have been misconstrued and misinterpreted. But at the end of the day, I have to own it. And that's what I'm going to do today. And so when somebody says to me, Stephen, rather than point to her and her verbiage and her language and how she talked about the president, what about how he talks? I have no problem with that.
All right. So, but I do. That's the what about his ism that women do all the fucking time. Because he might be an ass, it gives her license to be an asshole. Is that what you're saying, Stephen A? And the truth of the matter is, I'm not so sure he started hurling insults at Jasmine Crockett until she started doing that to him. But we can go back through the archives to find that out. So everything you said about Jasmine Crockett is negated because the president said something about him. So she should have the right to belittle herself and talk to the black community as if she's a gutter snipe because the president might be an idiot. Is that your point? I mean, really, that's what it sounds like. You know, that's the same thing if you sit down and talk to your wife and tell her that she's fucked up and all she could tell you is like an elephant, all the things you did bad. So it justifies her being bad. What does that have to do with what you said about her? Does that negate that? Or is it just, oh, well, you know, she had to say this, so she's getting back at the president? For heaven's sake.
I can understand that. And if that is the reason that everybody is in an uproar, that is fine. And I have no problem apologizing to that to my sister because, damn it, I want her to know I don't feel that way about her. Just like I didn't feel that way about Kamala Harris. Just like I don't feel that way about the marvelous, the wonderful, the incomparable, the greatest first lady ever, and Michelle Obama, in my estimation, or anybody else. But what we're going to do on this show is understand who the hell I am and how it's going to be as long as I'm doing this show. I have no problem apologizing if I'm wrong. I have no problem apologizing if I've made somebody feel a certain kind of way. But I'm going to challenge the legitimacy of what people come at me with when I think that challenge is warranted and deserved. If you came to me and you said to me that it came across as a bit dismissive, Stephen, you should have been more protective of her than that because look at how he speaks. Look at how they act on Capitol Hill towards her. I understand that.
Every time he says that, it sounds crazy that everything she's doing is retaliatory. That's not true. That's absolutely not true. She put herself on an offensive like this. And even if it was retaliatory, which it's not, you can't think you're going to get on Capitol Hill and dish it without being able to take it. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. Right? I mean, you just can't do that. You can't be hurling wolf tickets and then cry, I'm the fucking damsel in distress when they come back at you. And Stephen A. Smith, man, that's what's so. What are you apologizing for? Did what you say was wrong, or is it only wrong because Donald Trump is who he is? And that's what it sounds like he's saying, and that's what bothers me the most.
But when somebody tries to take that to accuse me of being disrespectful or in any way misogynistic, I'm going to push back on that because that's emphatically false. There's no truth to that whatsoever, and I'm not accepting that, and I'm not owning that. I can sit up there and I can look at Representative Jasmine Crockett. Do you know what I think she should be doing? I think she should be competing for the Senate seat in Texas or for the Attorney General spot because she's qualified. I personally think Kamala Harris should have ran for governor of California. I've said it for the record that if Michelle Obama was running for president, she would have beat Trump, in my opinion. I think she
Well, it's good that you have an opinion, but she wasn't going to beat Trump.
should have done it. That's how I feel. But somehow, some way, it's never enough for some people out there. I understand. I would advise you to get over it or buckle up because I'm not going away. This is my show. I will say what I feel and I will do what I want. It doesn't mean I'm going to be insensitive. It doesn't mean that I don't care about our community. A matter of fact, most of the trouble I get in is because I care about our community. And the reason I'm bringing this up and the reason that I'm willing to attack this subject, because this really ain't about Jasmine Crockett. I respect her. I wish her nothing but the best. I was simply asking a question. That's all. What's working for you? Because I don't want her to lose the prowess that she has. I want it to continue to gain and elevate. We need resistance.
So let me ask you, Stephen A., do you still want an answer to that question, or is it moot now that you've apologized and groveled for nothing? And, you know, I mean, why? And that's the whole point. If the man with the mic who makes $25 million a year can grovel to something that he didn't do wrong, I mean, it's just a bad look. Now, is it the end of the black man because Stephen A. decided to be, you know, less than, you know, testosterone driven on this? Like he always equivocates on anything? How are you going to be a straight shooter if you're going to take back everything that you say because somebody felt bad about it? Or that a woman like Tiffany Cross comes out. I saw a little bit of that stupid podcast they have where Tiffany Cross came out and said, you know, he's working on little dick energy. I mean, that's ghetto shit, man. You know, it really is. It's I don't see how anybody could respect a woman saying shit like that. Just like if a man said, you know, some of the worst things about a woman just to try to win an argument. You know, here's another thing. On a side note, both Angela Rye and Tiffany Cross came after Joe Budden. They came after Joe Budden because Lamont Hill went on their show and got into it with somebody, and they tried to say Budden's show was lowbrow, low educational, and not like their show that's, you know, some kind of boule bullshit. He ripped them both a new asshole. He didn't apologize. He didn't give a shit about the women and the boule and being canceled. He said, fuck you. You know what I'm saying? And he didn't use those words. I did. But he didn't back down. And his platform is nothing like Stephen A's. He said, wait a minute. You know, you don't get to take shots at me because you don't like it. You didn't hire Lamont Hill. He's on my show now. You had a chance to bring him over there with the so-called intellectual. Because Lamont Hill is one of those kind of liberal men. He's a smart dude, but actually he's kind of street too. Like he is when you get him riled up. he's got a mix of street and try to be a boule. But you know, but Joe Budden wasn't having it. He was not having it. You know, and I can say that's what I'm talking about. What's going to happen to you? Nothing, Stephen A. You got the bully pulpit. You could have just. This shit would have just went out into the woodworks. You know, but instead, something else triggered in him. And I'm not going to pay any more of the apology. I'm gonna stop sharing that. And here's my thing. Can you guys tell me why you think, anybody, tell me, you put in the chat, why you think he buckled? Why did he buckle? You know, that's my thing. Why the hell did he buckle? You know? And it couldn't be because of Tiffany Cross and all of these black gatekeepers. He didn't buckle because of that. You know, he wasn't going to lose his job at ESPN. You think ESPN just signed him for $100 million to fire him over some bullshit about Jasmine Crockett? No. Sirius XM just hired him for another undisclosed amount of money. You think they did that shit because they wanted to shy away from controversy that might draw eyes to their show? Right? You know, and here's my thing. I think, and this is crazy, this is my own stupid take. You know, being a Stephen A fan from a long time, when his father was out of the picture, he was raised by his mother and his 5 older sisters. I really think that, you know, his mother passed away, you know, God bless her and stuff. But obviously she was a liberal Democrat matriarchy. And the way he has deference to women, I think that I think he buckled under the heartstrings of his sisters and the face of his mother. Because I can't see him being afraid of the boule, right? He's a Q, you know, I mean, or whatever, you know, even though it's honorary or whatever it is. But I just think that, you know, somehow his sisters got to him and said, you know, you got 2 daughters, you got 5 sisters, you have a mother who raised you and did everything else. And I think that's the thing that got to him. Because these assholes coming out against him now, they're powerless against Stephen A. You know, we're not in cancel culture like that anymore, right? So I just think that his sisters, you know, kind of just said, listen, man, you know, if you go down this path, you know, you're going to draw a wedge between us. And he buckled. Because on the liberal side of things, they get kind of deranged. If it's not their way, they don't want to have anything to do with you. That's the way I look at it. You can't have a real good conversation with a liberal. Right? Look at how they're behaving right now. They don't want to follow the law. Liberal blue states and cities are in open rebellion against the federal government. Right? So that's my theory, and I think that I'm sticking by it. Now, and it's weird, you know. It's not the power of these guys chirping at his heels, but I think the family strings, which is much stronger, I think that's what it was. That's what I do. That's what I think it is. And so I got a lady that I want y'all to see. If y'all haven't seen April Chapman and her take on it, and she has a long video, but I got 3 kind of clips of it that I'm going to show. And I think that, you know, as she gets into it, you'll see where she's coming from. And she has a lot of smoke for Black men with love. With love. And I don't disagree with where she's coming from, because she's as disappointed in Stephen A. Smith as I am. Because if you look at the beginning of her show, she was saying, man, we've arrived. We got a Black man standing on a bully pulpit telling a ghetto snipe, or gutter snipe, hey, man, what the hell are you doing? You should be, appealing to our higher angels and not our lower ones. And why are you doing that? To appease who? Right? And she was all up and, then when the apology came, anyway, so without further ado, we're going to go ahead and go ahead and get started listening to some of her take on Stephen A. Smith. And I got it in pieces, so we're not going to, I'll stop and start and all that kind of stuff. But like I said, I can't express how disappointed I am in this dude, man. I really, really, really am. All right, so let's go to the 23-minute mark and get started with her. So bear with me for a second. I don't want to get too much more further down than I need to. All right, let's do it. Let's start from here. Let me put it back on the stage. And if y'all haven't checked out April Chapman, go check her out.
Not seeing Donald Trump just randomly go on the attack of a Black woman who did not come for him first or who disrespected him first. I've never seen that. I've just never seen that. But they have to create the boogeyman. They have to create the boogeyman, and they have to have the villain for you to hate in order to legitimize their inadequacy and their poor outcomes and their bad behavior. Because what he said about Jasmine Crockett was not wrong. But in order to ameliorate and make the mob feel good, he's got to gloss over what she's actually doing and put the focus and the attention and change the narrative what he is doing. When this ain't got nothing to do with Trump, this is everything to do with her behavior, her lack of self-control, and her ineffectiveness. That's what this is about. And so I don't know. Nothing he's going to say. This is like a 9-minute apology. I will link it below so that you can go ahead and watch it. But in terms of me playing it some more, I think you have a gist, or you've received the gist of what he's actually saying. What he does is he apologizes for criticizing Jasmine Crockett, and then he lays at her feet all of these celebratory platitudes and lauds how wonderful and smart and brilliant she is, and how he thinks she can be the next attorney general of the state of Texas, or how she should run for Senate, and he wants her to keep going. I thought it was ineffective what she's doing. Why would you want something like that to be to perpetuate and to continue if it was ineffective and harmful to the culture? This is how we know you lying. My question is, how are you trying, Stephen A., to position yourself as a leader in the Black community when you can't even stand on objective truth without folding to the mob? Because see, leadership is not about applause. When everybody's clapping for you and telling you attaboy and celebrating, leadership, it's not even about how many people like you. Only children care about who likes them. Real men are concerned with who respects them. They don't care about whether you like or love them. That is manhood 101. It is women who want, need love and desire and want you to just make them feel good. It is men who thrive from respect. That is what manhood is about. This is about conviction, and true convictions oftentimes will require you to stand alone. It's about standing alone when everybody else is bowing. You're standing. Why do I have to teach you this, Stephen A.? I promise you, I've said it before. I promise you, sometimes I feel like I have more testosterone in my hormonally challenged and unbalanced perimenopausal body than some of these whole-grown men, and that is not a compliment. I'm not celebrating that at all. I wish it was in the reverse. But I can't say that, because where's your courage, sir? Why must you prove us right and be out here acting like a chestless man? This is shameful for you to backpedal on this. Maybe something else, if you were maybe uncharitable or harsh, but you were spot on with this. It's the scriptures that teach us that the fear of man, it's a trap, y'all. It lays a snare. But it's those who trust in the Lord. Those who trust in the Lord, those are the ones who are safe. You can't be afraid of the Black woke mob. First of all, them ninjas don't even have enough power for you to even be afraid of. Okay, like, why are you scared of them?
Let me just stop it right there, just to pause it. Okay, now there's no lies told, right? She's right on the money, right? And she's not afraid to call out men. She's not afraid to call out. This was not the situation where he had to back down, because, and this, the worst thing a man could do, I shouldn't say the worst thing, a really bad thing, right? A men should never, and women for that matter, nobody should really apologize for being right. You should not apologize for being right. listen, I mean, this is like real anecdotal stuff, and it's not the same as this, but even in your personal life, and I think I might have told this story before. When my oldest daughter was in college, she started, like most kids, started fooling around, and she was, she didn't get those grades, and she wasn't telling me all the stuff that was going on. And when she came home for break, I let her have it. I mean, I must have, between telling her why that I'm yelling and screaming at her and dropping at least maybe around 45 F bombs. I never curse at my daughters. Because I told her, I said, listen, as a young person, and for me paying your full freight to go to college, you got a window like this. And I'm trying to get you through that window. And once that window closes, you can't come back to me to get through it. And so between every F bomb, my wife decides to step in because she thinks I'm being a little too hard on her. And I told my wife, I said, if you step in front of me again, and say anything against what I'm saying, I want you to shut the F up and get the out of my face. And she was shocked because I never talked to her like that. She didn't talk to me for a week. And guess what? I didn't give a shit. I didn't care. My daughter's life was on the line. I couldn't sit down here and sit down. And when I say life, I'm talking about the fucking opportunities she had to be where she's at right now. And I wasn't going to let her blow it without me saying my piece. My wife didn't talk to me for a week. That's why I love her so much. But so you know what? Two semesters later, she was on the dean's list. And here's the other thing also. My daughter's on Facebook. I tried to get to her page and I couldn't get on. I said, how come I can't, log onto your page? Oh, Dad, when you cursed me out, I unfriended you. And then we just started laughing. And she refriended me, of course, and we don't have those kind of problems. I never talked to her like that before, and I'll never talk to her like that again. And at some point, you just got to, when you're right, you can't apologize. And guess what? I didn't apologize to her, and I didn't apologize to my wife. Not on that one. Not on that one, because all the sacrifices I was making, I wasn't going to let nobody tell me that I needed to be apologetic for the way I behaved. And so let me tell you, all you people out there, I'm not saying for you to do that. I had credibility when I did that. For the way I worked, the way I kept the family together, I had all kinds of credits. So I decided if I had to burn them, I'm gonna burn them on this. And if you've been fucking up and you ain't been all that, you can't do what I did. That's why I got away with it, because I had the whole high ground. So I just wanted to put that out there because I don't want people to go out there and think, all I got to do is curse people out and everything will be okay. No, I don't want you to do that. I'm just telling you a story. Like she's saying, when you're right, you shouldn't have to apologize. You just shouldn't. Anyway, so let's go ahead and let's get some more April, because I really like this lady.
They're just a ball of emotions. All they do is emote and make a big deal out of nothing because it's all they have. They project, they emote, they complain. They don't get anything done. And you bowed the knee to them. You bowed the knee to people who were caping for Kamala Harris to be in office because they thought she was the best candidate for the job. How are you terrified of upsetting that group of people? How were you terrified of upsetting a group of women who weaponize outrage like it's a side hustle, yet it never cash flows? Oh, they work real hard dishing out their outrage, but it doesn't get them anywhere. So you could have just said what you said and let the chips fall where they may. But no, you couldn't do that. You couldn't do that. And y'all, this is why the Black community is stagnant. We just stuck. We are stuck because the so-called men who are supposed to be the leaders are scared of the women. Yeah, I said it. We don't respect you because you can't protect and lead, and you darn sure can't correct what you're afraid to confront. So why would we respect you? This is why we have to leave Stephen A in the category of clowns where he belongs. I'm sorry, I was trying to bring him along, but he can't go. He can't go where we're going, guys. He can't go because how are you trying to pivot from sports to politics and cultural commentary when every time you say something that somebody doesn't like, you fold? You're talking about that's your show and you say what you want to say. No, this is my show. I actually say what I want to say. I'm not folding or bowing to a mob of people who disagree with me and get their feelings hurt. Feelings? These facts don't care about your feelings. And this is not the first time Stephen A's done this. Do y'all remember the time when during sports commentary, which is what he does, he had some harsh critique for LeBron James's son? Do y'all remember that? Mm-hmm. I'm not a sports person, but I remember that. And I was like, okay, he's kind of right. The boy's not that good, right? He's just not that good.
Well, we're going to stop it on that because I'm going to fast forward that story we all know. And I want to finish it off with this last piece from her. But she's right about Stephen A. Now, I don't want to write the brother off, right? Because his apology is not really being accepted by some and all that kind of stuff, but he still has the mic. However, there's a change in him. There's something that burst with this particular situation. And we're gonna get to that in a second. And that's the distressing part. Let me move this up to the last segment of this. This is the last segment for her. Okay.
To take the heat and the arrows, whatever comes for the sake of what's right. And you couldn't even do that. So you're just making it up and now you're out here lying. So the question we need to ask ourselves, why does this matter? Like, if this was just about Stephen A. Smith, this video would end right now. But I can't end it right now because this is bigger. It's bigger than Stephen A. This is a pattern. This is a pattern of Black men bowing to the feminist mob also that they can avoid being labeled misogynistic. I'm like, you've got men out here apologizing for calling out dysfunction. And they're doing it because the loudest voices in the room are the chaotic ones, and the chaos is coming after them and they can't handle it. Like, this is the result of 3 generations, I say it all the time, of bastards raising bastards. This is the outcome. This is what you get. The matriarchal squalor. This is where the culture has no appetite. They can't hear anything from a man. They have no point of reference for it. They don't even know what it sounds like. It should be music to their ears, but it's so foreign to them that when they hear it, it sounds like an attack. So they're crashing out. But I want to make something painstakingly clear. Accountability is not misogyny. When you tell a woman the truth about her behavior, that is not oppression. That is a truthful observation that when you love someone, you whisper that to them, and then sometimes you shout it from the rooftops because it ain't just for them. That truth claim needs to be echoed and heard across the culture so that you can make an actual difference. But the moment that you lie and the moment you do it and you bow the knee to them, this is where the matriarchal misfits, they come crying sexism and claiming you're a misogynist, and they start twerking on the corpse of logic and just abandoning reason. They can't think straight. These are the same people who celebrated Kamala Harris and Meg Thee Stallion and Sexy Red. And I'm like, we're expecting them to enlist the help of logic and reason and to take in what Stephen A. said originally. You're expecting them to take his advice under advisement and govern themselves accordingly. You can't possibly believe that. These women are rebellious. They don't submit to anyone. This is why the culture is trash. This is why the culture is one big chaotic mess. And this is why our men are so weak. Because these are the women who raised them. Y'all, Stephen A. Smith had the opportunity of a lifetime to own his greatness and to lead. And in that moment, he would have, by holding the line, he would have been showing the next generation of men that you can stand firm and still get respect. But instead, all he did was show them that when you fear cancellation by high-calorie, self-absorbed, ratchet hyenas, that outweighs the truth and even the fear of God in most cases. And so you got to pick a side, and he picked his. But do you want to know what's ironic? What's so ironic, y'all, is that even his own audience, his loyal fans, are calling him weak. Let me show y'all. I got to show y'all these. This is wild. This is wild. Here we go. This dude is soft. He talked tough and aggressive. The next thing he apologizes, then get humbled. I'm so confused. Now, guys, he didn't fold. He just neatly placed himself in a drawer. Dang, Stephen A. Smith folded to the code of black and the code of black women over white whataboutisms. He said, you did all that just to apologize? This guy is so damn weak. I have no respect for this guy. John Witherspoon voice, flip-flopping in, bruh, you can't be serious. Well, if Stephen A. Smith planned on running for any political office, that's done now. This guy wouldn't last in a debate. Stephen A. Smith is apologizing. What a shock. What is the point to be a straight shooter if apologizing for everything you say?
All right, so you get the message. It's really distressing. And, we've been at it for a little bit. And, we got a couple of minutes left. But my whole thing is, you get the point. You all get the point that he shouldn't apologize. And there's enough people out there, as eloquent as possible to say, hey, listen, man, you made a mistake. You made a mistake and you didn't do us any favors. You didn't even do Jasmine Crockett any favors, to tell you the truth. And now, but here's the thing that I just noticed in his because I watch him on Straight Shooter. I watch him on his show. I might have been blacked out for a second. And I think he went all the way. I think he got not only too scared to stand on his square, now he's all the way into Trump derangement syndrome. And that's really something that it's scary how fast he flip-flopped over that. It's funny how fast and I got a real short clip on that one. And it doesn't make any sense to me on how that happened because he never liked Trump. In terms of voting for him, he said that plenty of times. But now we know about the scandal, right? We know about the scandal, the gambling scandal and all that kind of stuff. And the FBI came after him. Not after him, but after the guys. And the mob is involved. NFL players are involved. And they named the top names, Chauncey Billups. Everybody loves Chauncey, right? And then they have an active player who actually is on there. And they started dropping some big names that haven't been indicted, but their names have been dropped because this shit is connected. And the last thing about sports leagues, right? The worst thing you could do is get involved in a sports gambling problem. Okay? It's big. It's huge. Matter of fact, you're talking about NFL, NBA. You can't get involved. Look what they did to Pete Rose. Not only did they let him die as he's one of the greatest baseball players that ever lived, but not put him in the Hall of Fame. They put him in the Hall of Fame as soon as he died, not as a reward, but as the last admonishment that we let you die before we honor you, in the Hall of Fame because of what you did to what you almost did to baseball. Because the only sacred thing is don't get wrapped up in gambling. I thought that was the lowest shit that you could ever do to a man. Just keep me out. But they put him in the Hall of Fame after he was dead to make sure that I just think it was more of evil intent than a reward for his family. You know what I'm saying? Because they said anybody else can enjoy this, but you. We want you to die before you see it. I think that was cruel. I really do. Anyway, but that's how important gambling is to sports. And we got this big scandal. And here's Stephen A. Somehow, some way, blaming it on Trump.
How many times, for one incident after another, have I said, Trump is coming? He's coming. I'm going to say it on national television again. Bad Bunny is performing at the Super Bowl, and all of a sudden you hearing ICE is going to be there, looking to engage in mass deportations. The Super Bowl, disrupting things. Big night for the NBA. Wembanyama put on a show. That has now been smeared because we're talking about this story, okay? Remember, Trump has a long, long history connected to the world of sports because he had those casinos. Where do you think folks were coming half the time? I'm not talking about individuals. I'm talking about the culture. When people want to go to a casino, when people want to gamble, when people want to party, or whatever the case may be. This was his kind of connection to that. Why am I glad you're here, Monica? Because don't be surprised that the WNBA is next on his list. Because when you've got all of these protests that have been going out there and people that have been protesting.
Listen, okay, if you get a chance to look at the faces of everybody around the table, they're saying, what the hell are you talking about? Why would the WNBA be on the list for Donald Trump? They're not even making any money. Why is his name why do you think that he energized the DOJ to get after people who are gambling, who are destroying the fabric of a business that with a investigation that started well back into the Biden administration? What does Trump have to do with this? And so he goes on to try to explain this shit somewhere in here.
Against him and what have you. This man is coming. He's coming. And I've been saying it for.
I mean, it's like, is this a porno movie? You know, golly,
a long time. And to me, this is the latest nugget of evidence that we're talking about right here. That's not to question the legitimacy of the case. We don't know. We're all sitting up here and we're saying that we don't know. But anybody that has been around him, anybody that has talked to him, anybody that has seen his reactions from the sports leagues and the positions that people have taken, they are not surprised at what's going on today. I'm watching a press conference with the director of the FBI. Yeah. Tell me when we've seen that. We've seen accusations before. We've seen athletes get in trouble with the law before.
All right, so here's another. This is where it's so disingenuous. It's not like people never knew who J. Edgar Hoover was. His face was everywhere. But here's another situation, right, that bothers me. One, you are questioning the legitimacy of the investigation. You are investigating the. And so that's my thing. You are questioning it. That's number one. Number two, the FBI director is there because this is huge. This is not just a sports athlete getting in trouble. These are like 30 athletes, NFL, NBA, the Cosa Nostra, the Gambino crime family. I mean, this is one of the hugest shit. And you know what? I have seen Cash Patel at big major drug busts and all that kind of stuff. And since when does the director of the FBI have to be invisible on big major cases? Who said that? It's a lie. First of all, it's not true. It's a lie. And what does Trump have to do with the fact that people are committing crimes? And they need that they're in court, of course. But man, this is huge. And the integrity of the game is in trouble. And this whole fucking thing about Bad Bunny, I mean, that's a separate conversation than this one. And so now all of a sudden you go from being your own independent guy to sounding like every other head case liberal with Trump derangement syndrome because you got checked by a whole bunch of hyenas for some other bullshit. I mean, I don't understand, Steve. What does, this is really bad look for you. And
You don't see the director of the FBI having a press conference. It's not coincidental. It's not an accident.
All right, that's enough of that bullshit. Of course you see the director of FBI speaking. Just because you haven't, because you're an idiot. I've seen the FBI director talk plenty of times. They when they get called into Congress, in front of Congress. And so, I mean, this is just dumb. This has nothing to do with Trump. Anyway, and even if it did, so what? These guys might be criminals. He didn't make this investigation happen. His guys are doing their job. You're looking bad, Stephen A. You really are. And then, of course, what I don't have, and I should have thought about this, Kash Patel comes out and calls Stephen A. an idiot. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him. He comes out, he calls Stephen A. an idiot because he is an idiot on this one. So really, I just wanted to get that out. Like I said before, when we came here, everybody's talking about this or have talked about it. It's going to be an ongoing thing with Stephen A. Backpedaling and all that. And I think he played his hand, because he sounds just like every other card-carrying, Trump deranged idiot out there now. And I liked it when he was somewhere in the middle, but after he got checked, by, I think, like I said, his sisters and stuff like that, and the creme brulee, now all of a sudden he has to show everybody he hates Trump. I don't think that's going to be a good look for him. I really don't, And so listen, and the Bad Bunny concert, I had a frat brother of mine. He's arguing with me. Hey, do you know about Bad Bunny's music? And I said, no, I don't. I hate the music today so bad that I fucking subscribe to an AI generator and I make my own music that only I like. I like women singing. I like singing. I like love songs. I'm old, right? I'm a fucking baby boomer. I like to hear guys say, hey, honey, and women say, you know what? I appreciate you. I like those kind of songs. You ain't getting that out of the Bad fucking Bunny with his devil uniforms on and stuff like that. But guess what? I'm going to watch the halftime show just like I watch every other halftime show. And in the end, we're going to put Bad Bunny's show into the category with everyone. We're going to rank it just like we rank them all. If it happens, if it even happens. But I don't think there's going to be ice raids at the Super Bowl. I think that's ridiculous. That's just more talk from the crazy deranged woke mob. The Super Bowl was like one of these places that's immune, right, to a lot of shit. So anyway, so I don't have anything more other than my number one hit seller that my ode to Stephen A. Smith and his buck breaking thing. And then we're gonna say goodnight. It's nice and early. Go down and kiss the wife and all that kind of good stuff. And 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 just move on with the rest of the night, watch some football and kind of forget about all this stuff. But I appreciate this. You're looking at, like I said, I'm your favorite baby boomer. I am. It seems like I am because everybody's supposed to hate us, and so they can't wait for us to whisk away. But anyway, so what else is there for me to do but say goodnight? But before I do that, let me go ahead and play my AI generated song. And I have no problem saying that. You know why? Because I get a chance to put these songs out and I do manipulate the words and stuff. And then the tunes and all that stuff is done for me. And I can listen to these things. I got a playlist of love songs and all that kind of shit on my channel, theme-based music. Y'all can go there and pick and choose the ones y'all like. Some of them are good. I do some jazz. I do some this. Hey, Lit got some stuff on his channel much better than mine. Whatever sophisticated is great because I listen to it. Lit So you should go to his channel and listen to that music he got over there. He's putting out a lot of it, and some of it is really, really good. You know, I'd have to upgrade my thing to actually put on. But before we leave, I want y'all to listen to this because this is for Stephen A. Smith. And this, and then let me share it. And this is going to be for Stephen A. Smith. And then we're going to say goodnight and all that kind of good stuff. Let me see if we see it. Yeah, you see it.
With a heavy heart, the weight of dreams lost, tearing me apart. With shattered hopes, I chased the fading light. A broken man lost in the night. Memories, they haunt my mind. Truth's a cruel mistress, just hard to find. Oh, the road is long and the nights are cold. A story of a man with a heart of gold. Through the pain and tears, I still will stand. Searching for heart, I'm a but broken man. I stare at shadows that dance on the wall. Each echo whispers of my rise and fall. Play soft, but you broken life, I'm gasping for air. With every sorrow, lesson learned. In the fire of struggle, my spirit burns. The road is long and the nights are cold. The story of a man with a heart of gold. Pain and tears, I still will stand. Searching for hope, I'm a but broken man.
And there you have it, the broken man by the chicks who broke him. Anyway, listen, I appreciate everybody who stopped by today. You know, hey, listen, that's my take on the Stephen A. situation. Am I going to stop listening to him? I'm going to still listen to him. You know, when he talks sports or something, I can sink my teeth into. You know, he has some things but I'm very disappointed in him. And we need to find some black men who are going to stand on their square regardless, man. just regardless, and worry, don't worry about the arrows, and not only just on these YouTube streets, but in your personal life. I have this conversation with my daughter all the time. She's a little older now, and she says, well, she's been touched by the liberals a little bit and a lot and stuff. And I said, listen, I'm not against women, and you know that because I have receipts. I have you, I have your sister, I have your mother. I have receipts. But I'm the man. I said, if I wasn't the man I am today, you wouldn't have half the shit that you have. I said, never forget that. I'm not going to acquiesce to a lot of bullshit just because people have feelings. She kind of understands that, right? We have those kind of conversations. That's it. If I wasn't who I am, and I'm not no great shakes, but if I didn't believe the shit I believe now in terms of how to run a household and how to be the man of the house, we wouldn't have half the shit we have today. So if that. So I'm not apologizing for that shit at all. So if you don't love me, or she loves me, if we ain't all cuddly and all that kind of shit that you think about, I said, you will be that way. If not now, when I'm gone. So, and my daughter, she dotes on me anyway. So, but still, both of them do. But they can only stomach so much of me. That's the bottom line. Anyway, with that, everybody, thanks for showing up. Anissa, you were a little late. BMU, Lit, Trey stopped up a little bit. Curtis, all that guys, whoever else is listening and being silent, thanks for coming up. And with that, we're going to say good night.